All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to more Black Desert. My name is John, and every now and then I like to do an update on some of my old settings and just guides in general. But today we're going to be talking about my UI settings and all the graphic and everything stuff, because there's actually a lot of them in BDO. So I wanted to share with you guys what I use because, one, I've been asked this quite a few times, so I figured let's just make an updated video and it'll be cool. And it'll be for, I guess, for graphics and or performance, whether you're grinding or PvPing. I'll give you some tips on what to change. And so the reason why I brought this up is because I do every now and then change things for what I'm doing. Figured it'd be a good time. All right, so when you first start the game, you're probably going to be bombarded with a lot of messages, especially at the top, where it's like, this person has enhanced something, or this item is being listed on the market. So my number one tip for, especially for new players, is to turn every setting off until you think you need it, and then turn it on. So before we get into like the performance and everything, this is, I guess, for the newer players over here. There's alerts, and generally you don't need any of these, and these are very specific. So later on, you might want to see some cool things, but the only thing that I think is really important is probably like maybe notifications for Central Market. And then this is weird because this thing is still on more or less, depending on what you do. So like if you sell or buy something, these are probably the relevant ones. Everything else, there's no reason to ever see it. Personal, it's probably good to see when you're in a safe zone or not in a safe zone. Like, it'll just tell you, like, pop up, but otherwise you just look at it over here on your mini map, and then green or blue, I guess, means it's a safe zone. And then if you do war and everything else, I really wish that, like, all of these were turned off by default, just because, especially as a new player, you don't need to see them. So anyway, let's get into the performance settings. So I know we're in Velia, right? Or not Velia, Heidel, and my FPS isn't as high as it could be, plus I'm on decent settings. So usually when I'm grinding, it's over 200, which is pretty good. I think a lot of people say that more FPS is better, which I agree, especially in this game. And for everyone who's wondering, like, is it better to have a 144 hertz monitor versus a 60 versus 200? In general, more FPS is better, and like whatever you can do to get more is always good. So for the most part, when I play, I usually keep mine in a balance between having nice graphics and still being able to perform pretty well. And the reasoning why is when I make a YouTube video or when I stream, guess what people don't want to look at? RuneScape graphics for Black Desert. And trust me, I have played RuneScape when I was a kid for quite a while, and you can definitely see if a game looks really nice. And that's part of the charm for this game, that it just looks really realistic in a way. So I try to have a balance between performance and still being able to look good. So that's why I play on high, very high. Remastered, I personally think that remastered is a little too bright for me, and then I'd have to tweak a lot of other things. But I do see a point in remastered, because if you do the boss splits, there are some mechanics that you really can't see unless your effects are fully maxed out playing in remastered. So that's like the one thing that I would say is like the reason why to do that, especially if you're on a lower end computer, or just like, let's say you don't have $5,000 to spend on a computer. These are pretty decent. When it comes to anti-aliasing, I personally think that either not applied or FXAA looks better than TAA. TAA looks a little grainy, and it just more blurry, and it just doesn't really look that good. But if you like it, cool. I didn't really see a performance difference when I had these, and we'll talk about this again in a little bit once we come to another setting. So everything else over here, personal preference. This one is only into winter, like real life winter and in game. So like that's when they have the snow buildup. Everything else is kind of personal preference, but you guys can just see what I have. If you like taking screenshots, make sure to turn off the depth of field and make sure to turn up or turn on the far away and displays, because if you have this on, when you go to take your screenshot, if you see like your background is very blurry, not like this one, then it's the depth of field one. So just keep that in mind. If you're here for screenshots, that's what it is. Optimization. I know that people do actually play optimization mode with the AMD fidelity options, and the reason why is because for node wars and large scale PvP, obviously when like hundreds of people are in the same area, your game lags, and then that's not good. So I've definitely seen people use auto frame optimization, but more specifically for large scale wars or when people are just all clumped in one area. So that's one thing. The options that I would recommend keeping on for everything is attack decisions, miss effect. Oh, I should probably turn off that low power option, but you know, we'll just keep it on for now. But things you should have are, yeah, attack decisions, miss effects, because these are important things you can see as indicators for when you're PvEing and PvPing. So those are two different things. Everything else is irrelevant. Hide other adventures only works when there are a certain number of people in the area. So for example, like Garmoth or world bosses, when there's like hundreds of people fighting one boss and you're just lagging. I think it's Alt F5 or Shift F5, and you can just hide them, but it only activates when there's a certain amount of people in one area. So I think it's something you can keep on, but I don't think this works in PvP, where you just untoggle it for PvP. Camera performance is your field of view, basically. So let me just give you an idea. So it looks like 100. You zoom in, it's field of view. So play it at 100 if you can. Camera effects, I believe, is when you do attacks. You know how your screen shake is on? Guess what? When you like do videos or stream, people get motion sickness pretty easily, or I guess sometimes. So usually I keep mine at 0 just so people don't get motion sickness. And yeah, overall, I think it does add a little bit of immersion, but I'm just so used to playing at 0, it doesn't even matter. Workers and pets, this is what I have. It doesn't really affect anything. It shouldn't affect your performance. It actually probably helps it if you have it all hidden, but ultimately, will you notice a difference? Probably not. So just preference and display settings. So there's going to be a lot of settings that are in here that are also in performance. So for all of you out there who are wondering whether you should play full screen or full screen window, so if you are just playing, you're not like a content creator or anything, I would recommend playing it in full screen for the most part, because it unlocks your FPS, whereas full screen window locks it unless you have some settings changed, like your I have an NVIDIA card, but I don't know how it works for AMD. So there's some settings in your NVIDIA control panel where you can just either turn VSync off by default, even in windowed, or if you're on Windows 11. So I could still uncap my FPS while playing in full screen windowed, but I would say because I have to tab out a lot, I keep it on this setting. But if you're just playing the game, not a content creator or anything, full screen windowed will always unlock your FPS and you'll get a higher number just in general. Resolution is just whatever your monitor is at. So there is an option over here called crop mode. I do think this is actually a decent thing. So if you have seen other streamers have this on, basically what crop mode does is you could add black bars to the top and bottom or on the sides. So basically you're shrinking your screen. but it also gives you a wider area. So like, for example, I don't think I could turn this on without having to reset the game or just like restart it. But basically you move these sliders and then you'll start seeing like gray bars and the window will shrink down. But you can also see more vertically. So like this way, or not vertically, I think it's the other way. But anyway, you can see more left and right, but your top and bottom are shrunk down a little bit. So I do think this is actually a pretty decent option for some people, just being able to see more. But personally, I just like not having the bars on the side. It just something about it. Display quality, basically the same thing as what we've shown before. Here's one thing, the upscale, the AMD fidelity. So I used to have this on for a while, and it really kind of affected something. When I go into the Magnus, it's really bright. And the way to fix it with the AMD on is you have to play it remastered, which is not always an option, or you just turn it off. And so I used to play with this on with a few other settings. Like when you turn AMD on, what changes is you get sent to remastered by default, and then it goes TAA. And it looked a little bit weird to the point where there were workarounds, but I figured over time after testing it, if you have to mess with too many settings, it's probably better to just turn it off. So that's why I have mine not applied, and it also fixed the Magnus problem, so that's why I have that on. Despite all of this, I think I've shown this in another setting. Remove others' effects. I would recommend keeping this off, because especially if you're a PvPer, you want to see the other people's effects, especially the enemies, so you don't get hit by them. But remove far away effects, you could turn that off. So one of the actually bigger things that they have in this game that they don't have in other games is the photo filter. And they actually have a lot of settings that you guys can mess with. So like, look at the background, how it's just changing. I personally think that like the cool one, or non-contrast, or none, which basically the same thing, and vibrance are my favorite ones. So I like this one. It looks the most realistic, and for the people who have asked me how I get my settings like this is probably the setting you're looking for. And then the gamma and contrast, brightness and darkness, you just swing the slider around and then figure this out. This is one other effect that you guys probably want to keep in mind, the effect opacity. This is important to keep pretty high if you are doing boss splits, because being able to see the enemy effects is probably one of the most important things. So I really found that, especially in remastered, if you are at 100, you are seeing everything, and sometimes it's a little too bright. So even in non-remastered, I figured between like 70 to 100 is generally the good sweet spot for most people, and I think that you'll be fine with it. So yeah, 70 to 100 is something I would recommend for all of you. Obviously, if you're used to seeing bright flashes, or if you play a Dark Knight, you probably don't want it at 100, but it's also not super bad either. And I'm also glad that they add different color vision aids. A lot of games should have it. This should be the standard for video games these days. I unfortunately am not able to tell you what these actually mean. I'm pretty sure, like, what I've seen from other people is, you know how the black spirit thingy at the bottom like glows red by default? If you have a setting on it, it's like blue. So the people that actually need the color vision aid thingies, like, I'm sure it helps you. Unfortunately, I just have no idea what it actually does. So camera graphics is, I guess, basically just default. I don't think I really changed anything except for blur. I remember turning that down. Camera shake, yeah, that's one of those shaking things that I just don't like having on. Screenshot is personal preference. Volume, personal preference. And let's get into the general settings, where these are pretty important to have, and let's just go over all of them real quick. So aim assistance is, you know, like when you, if you've ever played a shooter game, aim assistance, like crosshair on the target. Is it really helpful? Will you notice a difference? A little bit, and I guess it depends on more what class you play than anything, but I've tested it with this both on and off, and ultimately, like, I think I could play the same with it on and off, so I might as well just have it on. So one of those things is very situational. Some skills do better with it on and off, so one of those things. So for all of you who have asked me, how do I get bars on different things and just move to UI? So like, I think by default in the UI, so this is how I have mine. So this is how I have all my things, and these are quick slots and these are cooldowns. So in case you've ever seen my main, that's what it looks like, and these are more quick slots. How do you get them? You turn that setting on, and where were we? So was it? Oh yeah, separatable quick slots. It's probably off by default if so many people are asking me how you get them, but you just toggle it on and you should be good. Simplify UI. I don't really know why people would want to have it simplified, especially in a game that's very dependent on being able to track buffs and timers. I guess if you're a life skiller or you're just like a role player or something in this game, you don't really need to see everything. But I think this is something that's worth keeping off for everyone. Just being able to see everything and tracking timers is always good. And then these are the fonts. So I should probably bring this up while we're here. You ever see those people, like whether you're a streamer or a content creator, who have like custom fonts in this game? Yes, you can change it. However, I have heard that people started crashing more, and like if you have a custom one, that's not like an official one. So that might cause some problems. Do it at your own risk. So I personally just play with the default. I think it looks nice. I've never had a problem with it. But if you're thinking about changing the font, just know that you could start crashing more. And if you can't like identify the problem of why you're crashing and you have a custom font, that's probably it. All of these are just, you know, custom and personal preferences. I personally think just being able to see everything is pretty nice. So we talked about this in the beginning, where the alerts are something that a new player does not want to see. Yeah, just turn all these off until you think you need them. The only alert thingies that you should probably see are pre-orders. If you put something on and you want to know when you got it, that's good. Personal stuff and war, probably good. And then central market if you need anything. So those are my recommendations, but ultimately just whatever you want. World map, default. Region, everything is default. If you've ever wondered how you change your UI, this is how you do it. I personally like the summer one the most. Yeah. It's just the UI change, but in case you wondered how you do it, now you can. Navigation type, so you know how when you like right click something and it shows you arrows. Like let me show you this, for example. See this little marker here? Let's say you're trying to make a marker over here. See these arrows? Yeah, that's what they are. Where are we? Yeah, so there's a ferry, no navigation. Don't ever have the no navigation mode. Always have the guide arrows or a marked line. Just it makes things easier. So this one is a tricky one because navigation is exact or smooth. And when they say smooth, it means like it's not really smooth. It's like, here, is my horse going to get to the fastest point, whether it means running up a hill, or do you want it to take a path in the safest way where you won't get stuck on walls, kind of thing. So one of those things where you just kind of have to know what you want. But this is what I have. I made sure to change this to smooth by default. And this is a little bit more important if you've ever done any sailing, because you will get stuck on random rocks in the ocean. And I think it, like, for exact pathing on land, it's less relevant because I think for the most part the auto path is fine for the most part. but water and boating is kind of wild. And then everything else, personal preference, interface settings is how you change your keybinds and everything. So that's that. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Every now and then I like to do an update for settings so you guys can see what's happening. And yeah, I think that's about it. So with that said, if you have any questions on how to do anything or UI settings in general, feel free to ask me and I'll try to point you in the right direction. But with that said, that's all I'm here for today. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Would love to see you guys come back. And we have some more cool stuff coming out tomorrow and throughout the week. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.